Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfaz with the top economic reports. Coming up, Gaza produce flows back into Israel, and Indonesia appeals to Muslim tourists. First, the headlines. U.S. stocks closed higher on Wednesday following Federal Reserve comments indicating a less aggressive timeline for raising interest rates. The Fed dropped its pledge to be patient on rate hikes, but cut its interest rate projections and downgraded its outlook for the U.S. economy. All 10 S&P sectors were higher on the day, with the S&P 500 ending within 1% of its record close set earlier this month. Traders now see a 60% chance that the first Fed rate hike will come in October, based on CME FedWatch.
With continued improvement in economic conditions, however, we do not want to rule out the possibility that an increase in the target range could be warranted at subsequent meetings. Today's modification of our guidance should not be interpreted to mean that we have decided on the timing of that increase.
Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff launched an anti-corruption offensive on Wednesday as her popularity continues to plummet. Her anti-corruption proposals include the criminalization of slush funds, widely used by Brazil's political parties to finance their campaigns. Rousseff promised to be on the offensive in seeking out the latest corruption scandal engulfing state-run oil company Petrobras. 103 people have so far been indicted on racketeering, bribery, and money laundering charges, including 3 former Petrobras senior managers and executives from 6 leading builders. Rousseff, who was chairwoman of Petrobras when the corruption took place, has denied any involvement, but many Brazilians hold her responsible.
Every cent that is diverted from public coffers is a cent taken from the quantity and quality of public services for those who need it. Therefore, the fight against corruption, which has a solid institutional basis since 1988, every day assumes a new dimension and a new proportion in Brazil.
The European Central Bank raised the maximum amount of emergency liquidity for Greek banks by less than the Greek Central Bank had requested. Greece asked for 900 million euros, but the ECB only agreed to a ceiling of 400 million euros. Greek lenders were cut off from regular ECB funding operations in February, forcing them onto emergency liquidity assistance from the Greek Central Bank. The European Central Bank is concerned Greek banks may use the emergency liquidity to finance the Greek government. Athens faces more than 2 billion euros in debt payments on Friday, and government salaries and pensions must be paid at the end of March. The Greek parliament on Wednesday passed a bill to tackle poverty to deal with what it calls a humanitarian crisis in Greece. It is the first piece of legislation passed by the new government and symbolic of its pre-election promises to relieve austerity. After the new bill was passed, EU officials said they would not stop the bill, but reminded Athens to consult with lenders first. The poverty rate in Greece has reached at least 23% from 20% in 2008, according to Greek statistics. Doctors of the World President Liana Malili stressed that the situation has deteriorated significantly around Greece.
More and more people, and particularly from the middle class, have now accepted the fact that I will be poor from now on. People who for a long period of time could not believe and could not accept that. I have a house and a car and I'm not able to buy milk for my child.
As a new spring dawns in Gaza, Israel has once again opened its borders to produce from the Hamas-controlled area, offering local farmers some much-needed relief. But only time will tell whether the political relationship between Israel and Hamas will allow for trade in the future. I-24 News journalist Daniel Roth reports.
1 week ago, 3 truckloads of tomatoes and eggplants traveled through Kerem Shalom, an Israel-controlled goods crossing with Gaza. This marked the first time in 8 years that Gaza farmers were able to export produce into the state of Israel. Gaza's agriculture was once a main source of income for the area. However, the revenue was brought to a halt when Israel imposed the blockade of Palestinian territories in 2006. This small opening of the border brings new economic opportunity to the area.
Within a month, we'll export 250 tons of tomatoes and 55 tons of aubergines, and we hope to increase that quantity.
The first shipment was a mere 32 tons, but expansion could help bring financial relief to a region in dire need. Gaza, home to 100,000 displaced Palestinians, was left in despair after the summer war, which killed 2,000 people. The international community is wary of the situation, warning that another war could erupt if the land and the economy is not rehabilitated and not reconstructed. Kogat, under the Israeli Defense Ministry in charge of civilian issues in occupied territories, made a statement that the produce exports would expand with future stages of up to 1,500 tons of vegetables being exported each month.
1 kilo of tomatoes is sold for 2 shekels here, which is the right price. Exporting tomatoes at 5 shekels a kilo, for instance, will benefit the farmers.
Although Palestinians are hopeful for the much-needed economic outlet, there is another motivating factor for Israel opening up the blockade. The Sabbath year, or Shemitah, which is happening this year, is, according to strict Jewish law, a year in which all agricultural land in Israel is meant to be uncultivated so the earth can rest. Only time will tell if these produce exports are the beginning of growth for Gaza or if they will reduce in future years.
And I-24 News correspondent Ayman Sikzak is with us now in the studio for a deeper look at the economic situation in Gaza. Ayman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Binyamin.
So what is new in Gaza?
Well, you know, I think the biggest news is that on April 1st, Palestine will become a member state of the International Criminal Court, and this has huge financial implications for Israel. Now, we've been hearing this for a long time, that Palestine wants to sue Israel over the Operation Protective Edge in Gaza, and we're talking about compensations for destruction of homes and infrastructure, so a huge possible financial implication for Israel. And of course, they're also putting in war crimes in there in the suit, which could potentially inflate the suit to many millions of dollars. Now, this is nothing new. Israel has actually done this move before. Citizens have sued the Palestinian Authority for terrorist acts. And we remember two specific occasions. In 2001, 11 families of victims of terrorist attacks in Israel sued the Palestinian Authority for 448 million shekels. That's a little over $100 million, and won. They're still waiting for the money, but they did win the suit. And there were other cases such as this before. So it will be interesting to see if this is going to happen the other way around now.
Essentially, we see, so to speak, the war or the conflict being taken to the courts. And now international courts, for that matter. I mean, how might this affect the relationship or the what we see now, potentially, if you want to be optimistic, the opening of the borders, the trade happening between the two? Is this a one-time event? Can we see something more happening down the line?
Well, I think it would be very difficult to be optimistic about this particular situation or development, because what's happening now is Israel, of course, is upset about this suit that may be coming soon. And what's happening now is for Gaza specifically, this could mean that more money will be coming in for the reconstruction of Gaza. We know that Israel, we just saw the story, has started to bring in a little more materials for Gaza's reconstruction. Many millions of dollars are needed to reconstruct Gaza to the situation it was before the war. However, if we speak about the relationship between Gaza and Israel, this will actually make it even more strained. So more money might be coming in, but hostile money will be coming in.
Right. And also, I mean, what will it mean? I mean, on the one hand, you still have Hamas in Gaza, in control, as ideologically based as ever. I mean, if we see another war, this might again sort of disrupt the situation.
And this is, of course, one of Israel's main fears, that if the money does come in, whether for the reconstruction or from the ICC, that some of it might go to Hamas and finance more terror attacks against Israel, which is a real possibility. We have to take that into account. And at the same time, Israel is still withholding several millions of dollars in tax money from the Palestinian Authority, which is straining the relationship even more. The employees of the authority are only getting 60% of their salaries for 3 months now.
I sense there's so much more to say about this topic, but we have to end here. Thank you very much, Ayman, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, from Gaza to the white sandy beaches of Indonesia, which is seeking to attract more tourists. Reforms aim to make the environment more Muslim-friendly, but in creating a more conservative appeal for Muslims, Indonesia may be forced to separate between Muslim and Western tourists.
A tropical paradise. In the heart of Indonesia's 17,000 island archipelago, Lombok's pristine white sand beaches are attracting a growing number of tourists. Just a short hop from the popular Hindu island of Bali, the local government here wants to forge an identity of its own by attracting a different type of visitor. Known as the Island of 1,000 Mosques, Lombok is hoping to tap into the international Muslim market. And to do so, some services need to be adapted.
Di hotel itu harus ada label halal.
The hotels must provide halal labels for the food. It must be clear whether it is halal or not.
Di dapurnya ada dapur halal, non-halal. Kedua,
secondly, every room must have a sticker that points to the Qibla. And third, every hotel must provide a praying room.
Yang ketiga, setiap hotel itu menyiapkan tempat ibadah.
Numbers are still relatively low. Only around 190,000 Middle Eastern visitors came to Indonesia in 2013. But some appear impressed with what they see.
We found that all the people here are Muslims, and they like Muslims. They are friendly with them. We hear the call to prayer from every mosque, and prayers are performed in each mosque. We found that people flow to mosques, and it makes us very happy.
The development of Lombok could mean that two separate markets emerge. One for Westerners, one for Muslims. And not everyone thinks this is a good idea.
That may be too much, because that way we'd be accentuating our differences too much. And if we accentuate our differences, then we create problems. So let's not accentuate them. Let's try to integrate instead, because if we don't integrate, that's when problems arise.
Only 8.8 million people holidayed in Indonesia in 2013. That's 3 times less than the number of visitors to Malaysia and Thailand. So despite its stunning natural beauty, it would seem Indonesia has some way to go before it can compete with its neighbors to the north.
We leave the sandy beaches of Lombok for a look at some stories from the news that are a little bit off the beaten track in Media Watch. Daniel Roth.
How's it going?
Good, thanks for joining us. So, beaches, tobacco?
Yes.
What's the connection here?
So, the New York Times has this piece, Michael Bloomberg, former New York mayor, Bill Gates, former Microsoft chief, both massive billionaires, are throwing a few $1 million into the pot to fight big tobacco. Big tobacco, a lot of people learned just in the last few weeks from a comedy show called John Oliver that big tobacco companies fight in mostly developing countries, but also countries like Australia, are fighting anti-tobacco laws tooth and nail. They're trying to take them to court. They're trying to make it too expensive to make it hard for people to smoke. So essentially, they're trying to fight these
easier for people to smoke. So
exactly.
Sort of turn back the clock and say, hey, all of these stickers and things that say, smoking kills. Let's get rid of that.
Get rid of it.
Make it easy, make it appealing.
Collectively, the big tobacco companies made $35 billion last year. So this is huge money. The fund is only $4 million. It's not nothing, but it is a small pocket compared to what the tobacco companies have to fight around the world to keep their product on shelves.
Now, why does Bill Gates want to be involved in this? It's just one of his many philanthropic pursuits?
It's just one of the many. He's dedicated to a healthier world. That's one of the things he's dedicated to, and this is one of the ways he's seen fit to do that. This is one of the places where he and Bloomberg meet.
Okay, we'll see how that happens, how it goes on. What else do we have here?
So the BBC had this story. Germany just outlawed Uber Pop, their unlicensed service. So Uber runs a service that connects you to real taxis, and they run a service that connects you to unlicensed drivers. There's been all kinds of problems with this. And Uber is now going to fight tooth and nail to get their service back into Europe. But in Paris, police already took down one of their offices. In South Korea, Uber executives have been charged with with running an illegal outfit. Uber Pop, which is trying to undercut the taxi market by paying drivers on different margins and less in a lot of cases, which is not particularly sustainable because drivers need to eat also. Uber's trying to fight these kinds of regulations, saying, here's the future. Now, the technology they provide, of course, is amazing, connecting people with smartphones, but not paying drivers enough, not checking out drivers, making sure passengers and drivers are both safe. These are the kinds of things that Uber Pop has stumbled along the way. Big time.
A lot of issues. Well, thanks, Daniel Roth, for joining us on Media Watch.
Thank you.
That wraps it up for us on The Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at iPhone News. I'm Benjamin Chong-Fires. Thanks for joining us, and watch us again next week for more on the economy.